Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, all right, so yesterday we did a brief video on using the least common multiple to write an equivalent fraction. There were several strange looks and confusion, which is fine. You're going to get an assignment with 12 problems today. Luckily, I'm going to do 2 of them for you right now so that you can see what it's supposed to look like. Now, question number 1 on this assignment is 1/10 and 1/5, and then there's a line. The line is where you're going to write the equivalent fractions, which means I'm not going to see all this work on the front. You may need a piece of notebook paper to work through this stuff, or you may work it in your journal. But each problem looks like this: 2 fractions, and then a line where you put your equivalent fractions. You with me so far, Kinley? Does this make sense so far? All right. So this is where just my answer is going to be, because I don't want to have to decipher all your writing to find just the answer that I'm looking for. Anything else I write outside of this semi-box will be what you'll have to write on a sheet of notebook paper. I have to show work? That's crazy. Yes, and you'll staple the notebook paper to the assignment so that I can see it. So step 1, because we're using the least common multiple, or in this case, the least common denominator, I take my 2 denominators, and I'm going to list some of the multiples for my least common denominator. This is going to be done on a separate sheet of paper, so that I don't have to see that right next to this and see 57 things on this line that will confuse me. And then I'll mark it wrong, and you'll get it back, and you go, the answer was right there! And I'll just say, you wrote the answer like this big. I don't know. Chloe, I hope you're watching this at home. Chloe, if you're doing this assignment, because yes, I did send it to you, you're going to have 3 videos today you can watch at home, which means you're going to have half of the problems done. Yep, there are 12. You're going to have half of the problems done up here. So, man, you're lucky. Man, I wish I was sick today, too. All right, so my 2 denominators, 10 and 5. I'm going to list some multiples, and I'm going to list them until I find the least common multiple of my denominators. 10, 20, 30. Most of the time you can figure it out. 50. Oh, boom, 10. So my least common denominator is 10. My least common denominator is 10. Then I'm going to change each of these fractions so that there's something over 10 without changing the value. Without changing the value. Now, we all agreed yesterday that if you multiply something by 1, it doesn't change the value. Since a fraction is a number, if I multiply that fraction by 1, it's not going to change the value. It's going to change how it's written. So I need to change 1/10 so it's something over 10. Well, it's already something over 10. So I can leave 1/10 as 1/10 because it already has a denominator of 10. I need to change 1/5 into something over 10. And I can draw, very poorly, the number 1, because I need my fraction to equal 1, because I'm multiplying 1/5 by a fraction that equals 1, so that I get a denominator of 10. Now, how do I pick that denominator? Well, let me explain to you. I just look at my 2 denominators. I have a 5 that needs to change to a 10. So So 5 times what is going to equal 10? 2. So since I want the fraction to equal 1, I have to have 2 as a numerator, and God bless you, 2 as a denominator. God bless you. When you multiply fractions, we're not supposed to learn that yet. I know, but I'm teaching you anyway. When you multiply fractions, you multiply straight across. So actually multiplying fractions is far easier than adding and subtracting fractions. Much less work. You multiply straight across, so 5 times 2 is 10. 1 times 2 is? 2.
2 years old.
And so the other fraction would be 2/10. Now if your answer looks like this, I will be able to see what your answer is. It will make me much happier. A happy teacher is happy students. Happy teachers, happy students. So that's actually number 1 on the assignment you're going to get today. Oh. Number 2 on the assignment you're going to get today is 1/3 and 2/9.
1/3 and 2/9.
And a lot of the times, you can figure out what the least common denominator is just by using your brain,
9.
just by not doubting yourself and saying it doesn't make any sense. You can figure out what your common denominator is. I'm just saying. But I want to show you step by step so that it may... What is the least common denominator, class?
9.
9. Okay, fairly easy. It's 9. But let's look just so you see all the steps. I mean, if you know it, all you have to do is write least common denominator, and I don't need to see all this. If you know it. A lot of them are easy. But if you put 18, I'm going to mark it wrong because it asks for the least common denominator. 18 would be a common denominator, just not the least common denominator. Okay, so let's go 9, 18, 27. And usually, I would start with the smaller one, but I'm just trying to prove a point today. 3, 6, 9. Oh boy. 9 is my least common denominator, as was predicted by the class. Now I need to change 1/3 into something over 9 by multiplying that by a fraction that equals 1. 2/9 is already over 9. I don't need to mess with it. If it wasn't over 9, then yes, I would have to mess with it. So now I'm looking at 1/3. I need to multiply that by a fraction that equals 1. I got it in my sponsorship I'm working towards. I need to multiply it by a fraction that equals 1 so that I don't change the value. Because when you multiply something by 1, it doesn't change the value. So then I look and I ask myself, self, 3 times what is 9? And my self answers, 3 times 3 is 9.
Oh.
Well, since I need my fraction to equal 1, my numerator and denominator must be 3. I multiply straight across. 3 times 3 is 9. 1 times 3 is 3. So 1/3 equals 3/9.
3/9.
This right here is what it would look like on the front of this sheet that you're going to get. I don't need to see all this other junk on the front. I need to see it on a sheet of notebook paper so that I don't get confused. Or your journal. As long as you work it and you can show it to me when I ask. Parents, if you're watching at home, your child's journal must have the following information by Friday. Since today's Wednesday, Friday is 2 days from now. It must have, because I'm checking it for a grade, and it would either be a 0, because they don't have everything in there, or 100, because they do have everything in there. First, I don't know if I have examples of all these pages, but the first thing they need to have this top square, put in their journal. It is improper fractions, where you're changing to mixed numbers. Let me see if I have a copy of the other thing. Oh, yes, I do. This, where it's mixed numbers, changing to improper fractions. Because as we get into adding and subtracting fractions, which hopefully we can get to tomorrow. Yes, ma'am. Oh, you had your hand up. Also, they need to have completed page 195, included in their journal. That's notes of how to add fractions using using the fraction bars. Page 201. Page 201 teaches them how to subtract fractions using fraction bars. So those 4 things need to be in their journal by Friday. Because when I check it Friday at the beginning of class, if it's not in there, instead of a 100, it will be a 0.
What if you miss a big one?
Then you don't have that assignment done and it's a 0.
Oh, okay.
If you have 3 of the 4, that's a 0 because you didn't finish the assignment. You have to have 4 of the 4, which you have plenty of notification of that. So you have today and tomorrow to make sure that gets done. Parents, we have an assignment due Friday that they should have plenty of time to work on it. Pages 198 and 204. There's only 4 questions on each page, so that's a total of 8 questions. I've done the math. 4 plus 4 is 8.
Whoa.
So each question is worth 12.5%.
I didn't know that.
So keep that in mind. If you miss 1, you'll get an 87.
Oh!
Wow.
So take your time and get that right. Also, parents, if you're watching today, please have your children do the Prodigy Extra Credit. It is a review on everything decimals. Now, when we did the DCA last week, that hopefully your child brought home and showed you, the DCA last week was over everything decimals. And many students didn't do as well as they could have done had they been working on the everything decimals on Prodigy Extra Credit. Plus, it gives 10 points to your lowest grade. And I do this every week. So please, for the love of Pete, parents, watch it and have them do it. I need to know that everybody knows everything about decimals. Because pretty soon I need to start everything fractions for our Prodigy Extra Credit. And I need to continue reviewing everything multiplication, everything division. The Prodigy Extra Credit is phenomenal review. Please have your kids do that. Please.
And don't forget Sonic.
Sonic, sponsor me. Please. If you haven't subscribed, please do so now. It'll make me famous. Boom shakalaka, peace out. God bless. Love ya. Do something kind today.